Okay, so last garment for this little set then, we're going to create a little, well not a little, kind of loose vest top to go over this. I'm just going to grab my top there, pop it over to one side, keep it out of the way, and then I'm going to right click on everything and freeze it. Okay, so we want the polygon tool. I'm going to zoom into my 2D window here with the mouse wheel. I'm just going to start to draw out a shape. So I want it quite baggy, so I'm being a little bit over exaggerated here. So I'll just go up and let that close. Come on, when you're ready. There we go. And then I'll select the middle line, right click and unfold with symmetric editing. Okay, so let's do a little bit of adjustment before we go too far here. So on edit curvature, I'm just going to curve down that piece there, and then we'll curve in this middle piece, and then we'll adjust that a little bit. So on the edit pattern, on that line, I'm just going to select this end point and flatten this out a bit, and this one I'm also going to flatten. I want quite a nice curve into that because that's going to help me with a bit of trim later on. Okay, so let's copy this. So right click copy and then right click mirror paste. We'll pop that there and then we can arrange it. So shift F for our arrangement points. I'll select a back point, perhaps that one, and a front point, that one. Whoops, that's a bit too high, I'll just move that down. And then shift F to turn them off, and then we'll just get these sewn up. Okay, so we want the segment sewing tool. So I'll go back to front or front to back, whichever way you wish, and then we'll do the bits over the shoulder, just making sure I don't cross them over, and then press space to sim. There we go. Okay, so that's not too bad, but it's not quite as long perhaps, or as loose as I want. So I'm just going to grab all of the bottom part there, including the bit under the sleeve there. I'm just going to move that down with the shift key held down to constrain the direction, so I don't actually sort of dodge it one way or another. It's poking into the mesh now, so I'm just going to right click and reset to 3D arrangement point and let it resim on its own. There we go. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's quite there, but it's not far off. Just having a look down here, that's okay. And yeah, I think it's pretty close. It's perhaps not wide enough, so I'm just gonna move the edge out there, and the same on the back, and then let it sim to settle down. I want it to be loose, I don't want it to be, you know, tight fit. Everything else is tight fitting. This is meant to be kind of a contrast piece to kind of bring it all together. Yeah, I think that's not too bad. Okay, so we've got a basic shape, and we need to put some trims and a bit more shape in and give a little bit more control to the garment. So we'll do that next. Okay, so I wanted to show you a different way to add trim to this, and that's to add it to the outside without adding you know, long strips. So if we select our sleeve hole there and then right click and offset as pattern outline, make sure you've got create internal line ticked. I'm going for about 10mm perpendicular with a unified corner, and that should do the job. So if I click OK there, see I've got my internal line and I've got my, you know, extra little piece on the end, and that's added in, which is great. And now I can select these, right click and cut and sew them. Okay, so some endpoints are not properly intersected with the pattern. Do you want to extend them? Yes, so let's extend those and then come out. And now I've got some weird stuff going on, so let me undo that and let's do that manually. So this point isn't going right up, which is odd. So let me click this point, right click, extend to trim, so extend to pattern outline. There we go. And let's go back and have a look at our shape, and yes, it's gone all a bit crazy. So what do we want? Edit curvature. So I'm just going to use edit curvature to kind of straighten this up a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of messing about, and in fact what I actually need is edit curve points. There we go. And now I can see I've got a couple of curve points here. So I've got this one which I can move, and I've got this one which I can also move. And if I add a point in there just by clicking on the line, I can bring that in, so I've got a much, you know, more sensible, straighter line. And now if I right click, cut and sew that one, it should be good. There we go. So let's have a look at the back as well. So again, it's a little bit of a rigmarole. If I grab this point, I'm just going to move it upwards manually. I'm going to zoom out to look. That doesn't look too bad, so I'll right click, cut and sew that. So that's adding a trim by basically extending the pattern instead of, you know, cutting it inwards and then cutting it off. And it's quite handy. You know, sometimes you haven't got enough space to do that, but I've deliberately left space in this particular one to give me that option. Okay, let's quickly finish this off. So I want to copy all of these and paste them. So copy and paste. Let's paste those above just so I know. Then we can start to sew them backwards or back onto the pieces they came from. So that one to there and that one to there. Lovely. That one has automatically done it because it's a symmetric pattern still. Nice little time saving option there, and that one's done the same. Okay, so I need to select these now. So let's select each of our pieces and then right click and superimpose over. There we go, so I had to think about it. And before I go too much further, I'll select the avatar and press Shift A to hide it. And I just want to go in underneath and reverse the normals on these pieces. So flip that normal, flip this one, there we go. It's done the same on the other side because they're symmetric. And then we'll let it sim. Come on, sim, there we go. And now I just want to put my internal lines in to make that work. You see they've kind of flipped over and gone into themselves there. Let me just undo that, and I'll put these slices in first. So it's this bit. So right click, offset as internal line at 1mm, that's perfect. And then the same on the back, offset as internal line 1mm, and just to be safe I'm going to increase my pattern or my particle size for those pieces. Oh, they're difficult to select, aren't they? Let me just select them in the 3D view instead. There we go. And I'll take those down to somewhere around 10, which should give me a little bit more leeway. There we go. If I press space now, there we go. Now I notice I haven't actually tied them up at the top and the bottom, so I need to do that. I'll do that between videos, you know how to do that by now. And then when we come back we'll do some more trims and then perhaps adjust the material to you know, to have it a little bit more flowing. So okay, so let's do the trim around the neck. So let's use the same treatment, but for this we're going to need to take off our symmetry because if I right click and then offset as pattern outline and just click OK, it's going to complain because it's treating things as kind of 2 lines, and we want it to be 1 essentially. So I'm going to right click here and remove linked editing, and I'll do the same for the back. So remove linked editing. So now I can select this whole line. Whoops, not that line, that line. And we'll do that one as well. Whoops, I moved that, didn't I? I could see it move. Ooh, have I undone too far? No. So right click, offset as pattern outline, 10 centimeters. Make sure they create internal lines there and click OK. Oh, and it's still going to complain. Okay. Let's try a different option. So offset as pattern outline, and we'll have extend instead of not extend, sorry. I want a default corner, not a unified corner. And let's click OK, and there we go. Now it's done the job. So let's right click and cut and sew that bit, and cut and sew that bit there. And if we come up here, we should see we've got our trims here. If we press space, it should re-sew itself in. Our back is complaining, but that's okay, it's sorted out. But it's not sewn front to back. So I'll press space to stop the sim, and in segment sewing I'll just sew those together and sew those together. There we go. Press space, let it sim. It's looking good. Press space to stop the sim, and now I just want to copy these and paste them. Let's paste them above. There we go. Sew it back to itself. Might use the free sew here because I've got 2 lines to work with. Whoops, that went too far there. There we go, to that one. I'm just going to move this up because it's a bit close to that pattern for sewing. And then back to our segment sew, or free sew rather, and we'll sew that one to there. There we go. We'll do the same on the back. Let's move it first, and then with the free sew tool, there we go, and same on the bottom. Okay, if I now select these pieces at the top, if I was in a selection mode, there we go, selection mode, and right click and superimpose over. There we go. Now let's pop our internal lines in. Select each of the lines there, and right click, offset as internal line, and we'll have 1mm. There we go. And I'll let that sim with us by pressing space, and there we go. Okay. So I want to flip the normals on these pieces. So let me select that one. See if I can actually see it in the viewport. Yes, I can. There it is. So I want that one and that one. I'm going to zoom in the viewport so I can see properly and turn off the sim so it becomes less sluggish. And I'll flip those normals, and that should be good. Press space, let it sim through. That seems happy enough. So with thicker bits of trim, you know, it's a little bit easier. You know, the tinier you get it, the worse it is, the more, you know, hassle you're likely to get. So I'm just going to put the bottom trim on between videos. I'm just going to delete that line because that's going to make it harder for us to work with. So when we come back, we'll be done, and we'll adjust some fabric properties to, make it a bit nicer. So I'll talk to you then. Okay, so let's have a look. So I've popped the bottom trim on just by adding a strip in this case, and what we're going to do now is update our fabric. So let's just go down to presets. Now recently we've got this little preset here which gives you an idea of what the material is going to look like. I don't necessarily get on with it that well. I like to see the names. If you, like me, like to see the names, you can go to the load option instead, and you'll get your directory with all the nice names in it. So actually I'm going to use this for now. So I want something that's sort of quite drapey. So this cotton plush here looks quite good, and there we go. Let's change it ever so slightly. A lot of these changes are going to be quite slight. It's kind of stiffened up there, which I don't like, so yeah, let's change that one out. Are you going to let me do something? Let's turn the sim off, that might help. And we're into our clicking and nothing happening game again. There we go. So what we got here, fox fur, no, that doesn't sound good. Cotton sateen, stretch sateen, stretch velvet, terry cloth. That sounds like something you might put on a t-shirt, on a vest top. Perhaps not. Cotton twill. It helps if you have the sim running, John. Otherwise, we won't be able to tell what's going on. There we go. That's nice. That's relaxed out quite nicely. So that's the terry cloth. It's not necessarily got as many kind of folds and things as I want, so I'm just going to try a few others until I find one I want. Fur doesn't seem like it would be a good idea, does it? Knit cotton rayon jersey. Whoops, the sim's not running, that's why it's not changing. Silly man. That's got quite a nice thing to it. It's got quite a nice peak there, quite a nice fold. So yeah, happy with that. Now one thing, let's rename this to vest, just so that I'm keeping track. Oops, helps if you don't have your caps lock on, John. So one thing that we can do here is duplicate this. So let's select it and then just click copy. Now this I want actually on my trim pieces, because I want my trim pieces to be a little bit stiffer. So I'm just going to select each of our pieces here. Oops, could be some time. Oh crumbs. Yeah, no, that's not going to work. Easiest way to do it is just move these out of the way and then drag across. And now with this button here, I can apply this new copy to all of our pieces. So they're now on that different one, and we can demonstrate that by simply changing the colour. Let's put this to a greyish colour. There we go. There we go. Right, so the reason I want to do that is because I want to make this a little stiffer, and we'll just call this vest trim. And then down here I'm going to, actually this time I am going to use my browser, because I want one of the trim bits down the bottom. Trim fusible rigid, trim hardware. Let's go fusible rigid, and we'll apply that. And that's now stiffened those up sort of quite nicely. Perhaps a little too stiff in some places. Seems to have done some crazy stuff down the bottom there. I'll just let that settle down. So it's not too bad up there, but it's not great down the bottom. So let's try and pick something else. So perhaps just a stiffer cotton would be better. Heavy canvas. There we go, now it's relaxing out a bit. I think I might have made these perhaps a little too deep because it looks like she's wearing a bit of a hula hoop at the moment, which is not what I want at all. But around the top it's working quite nicely, and it might be that actually I've increased my pattern distance too far here, so or decreased it too far rather. So let's take that to 15. Let it think about it for a moment, and press space to let it sim. I could take these top ones off actually if I deactivate them. We'll see what happens to that trim underneath. You'll see that trim underneath there now is behaving differently, so I'll stop the sim, I'll reactivate these and then reimpose them. Because I've flipped the normal down here, I need to superimpose under, and there we go, that's sorted that more or less out. Seem to have a little odd nick in there. Yeah, there we go. So sometimes it's just as well to reset bits, you know. Sometimes, you know, when you change a bit of a sim, you know, it will cause it to get into a point where it has trouble getting out, and just resetting some pieces. Yeah, deactivate some pieces, let it settle, reactivate them, reset them, and let it, you know, come together. Okay. So we need some sort of material on this, and I just want a very simple one on this one. We'll use this kind of stylized cotton here, or wool rather. So I'll drag and drop that onto the vest, and then we'll drag and drop it onto the trim as well. So we're good. I'll think about that. Get the properties up, making sure the sim's not running, and we want the transform first. I want to take this down quite a lot, so let's take it 10 times smaller, like 50. There we go. And similarly for the trim pieces, I want to do the same by 50, and I don't want it to be quite as dark as it is, so let's go and find the custom properties. That's what I want. There we go, and I'll just lighten this up a bit. There we go. That much? A bit more? I'll use that one. There we go. I could use different colours between my trim and the main shirt, but I'm not going to. I'll probably do that in a texture a little later on. Okay, so there we have our general thing, and the next thing we're going to do is just make sure everything works together, basically, because we want, you know, we don't want these to interfere with each other, we don't want them poking through. We're just going to reactivate everything and make sure everything's fine. So I will talk to you. Okay, so this could be easier, or it might be a little bit trickier, so I'm going to press Shift A just to show the avatar. I'm just going to select everything over here, right click on a piece of frozen clothes and click unfreeze, and then I'm going to press space to let it start simming, and yeah, miracle, it all works together. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it's a little bit more tricky, but the general thing to do is, you know, for your very top piece is to select the layer property above everything else. So in this case the pants and the undertop would be on layer 0. I'd set this one to layer 1, and then it should, you know, come out and be above them. Sometimes sorry about that. Sometimes it doesn't, you know, it doesn't quite work, and it's just a bit of experimentation, a bit of pulling, deactivating and reactivating, but otherwise, you know, it works pretty well. One sort of caveat to that is, for your final simulation, all your layers should be the same. Marvelous Designer is clever enough to, once it's sorted itself out with the layers, once it's got the layers set, it will generally work very, very, very well indeed. So that's that really. That's a bit of an anticlimax, that last bit. I expected issues and I didn't get them. So yeah, be thankful for small mercies, I guess. So that's our final little outfit, which doesn't look too bad. It needs some work texturing wise and such like, which I would personally would do in Substance Painter. So yeah, I hope you found that little series useful, and I will talk to you again another day.